Folks, it's me, Denny Carter from NBC Sports Edge, powered by Rotoworld. Thanks for joining me once again for this waiver wire discussion. My waiver wire thoughts, many of them, are on NBCSportsEdge.com if you'd like to check that out. If you prefer not to read, if you are anti-reading, then you can just ask me questions here. I also have, nice little handy shortcuts, I think, where you can just see a top 10 list of my favorite ads of the week. And then by position, I have a position by position breakdown that unfortunately includes Evan Engram. And I know folks are going to be triggered about that, but usage is usage. Okay. Look, the players are dots on the field to me. Now, I've never watched a game. I only watch spreadsheets. Okay, so I don't even know if Evan Engram walked into my office right now. I would say, "Hi, who are you? Also, why are you in my house?" I wouldn't know him. No idea. That's probably not true, but anyway, you get the idea. If a tight end is out there running routes and seeing a decent number of targets, I'm going to include him in my waiver wire piece. It's my constitutional right. Sorry if that upsets you. I'm wearing, yes, Howie, Howie, this is my dad's burner account. Says, thank you for putting on a collared shirt this week. You're welcome. I know how unprofessional I looked last week wearing a t-shirt. And I can't remember why I was wearing a t-shirt. Sometimes you just feel like streaming with a t-shirt on. I'll never wear a tank top. That's my pledge to you, first and foremost. I'm waiting for folks to fill the space here with questions. I will answer some start sits. If you have any trade questions, listen, if you have waiver wire questions, which hopefully you do, try to include some context. I don't need to know your life history in fantasy football, but just some context. Should I pick up Garrett Wilson? My receivers are fill in the blank. That sort of thing. Just so, because I can't say like, yes, definitely blow your whole free agent budget on Garrett Wilson so that you can start him over who, but start him over Jalen Waddle. No, I mean, Jalen Waddle could be your wide receiver 3. In that case, you don't need Garrett Wilson. Sorry, I got worked up. All right. Well, let's Howie, that made me laugh, man. All right, let's get into this. I also included kickers in the waiver wire piece. Folks want the kickers. Look, it's a great shame for many people that they need kicker content and kicker advice. I get it. But you need it because your league has kickers and you want to optimize your lineup. And I know kickers, folks. I don't know much, but I know kickers. So check it out at the bottom of the waiver wire piece on NBCSportsEdge.com. We'll start off with Dave, who says, who's the best quarterback to add? Tua, after his unbelievable performance against Baltimore, Marx, Mariota, or Jared Goff? Well, those who add Tua this week, I think, are in for a bit of a shock because he has just a miserable matchup this week against a Buffalo defense, allowing the second lowest, and just by a smidge, the second lowest EPA per dropback through 2 weeks. We saw what they just did to Ryan Tannehill. Not saying that Tannehill is better or worse than Tua. He's probably worse. But I think Tua is going to need, again, massive volume to get there for fantasy purposes. Maybe he gets it in a game where the Dolphins probably can't compete with Buffalo. I'm sorry to the Dolphins fans out there, but come on, So on the flip side, we have Mariota, who's playing the single worst secondary in the NFL in the Seahawks. So I'm approaching this question from like a streaming standpoint. Who do I want to start as a streamer, Tua or Mariota? Goff's not really in the conversation, although I did recommend him, but as a secondary option or tertiary or whatever comes after tertiary. I'm having my interns. What comes after tertiary? Look into that. Thank you. Can't get a good help. So yeah, Mariota has a great matchup, and Mariota's not good, but I think he can thrive in that sort of matchup. Saying that, all that, I'll go Tua, I guess. All right, let's go here. More questions. Get your questions in. All right. Brian says, blow the budget on Jimmy Garoppolo. I have Jameis and Baker and 2 QB. I mean, I guess in that situation, might not be a bad idea. You should be aggressive, let's say. I don't know about like using your whole budget or anything, but yeah, be aggressive because you're down bad, Brian. Baker, just unbelievably terrible. He's a career backup, which is just amazing. Oh, hello to Bethany Q Peters the 8th in the chat today. All right. Island Boy Gamers is giving me the details. I'm gonna have to. So Island Boy Gamers wants to know Engram or Everett. It's Everett. Just Everett. Okay, there you go. All right. Greg says Dallas and an obvious streamer. Sorry, Dallas is an obvious streamer. The coffee is kicking in. All right, Dallas is an obvious streamer this week, right? I can't imagine Micah versus Daniel being anything other than. Look, Micah Parson single-handedly won that game against the Bengals. The Cowboys did their best to lose that game. Okay, they got up by 11 points, and they said, now it's time to establish. Give it to Zeke 55 times. What felt like 55 times, I think it was actually like 14. 3.5 yards a carry, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. That's our offense. Horrific, just a horrific team. Terrible. Okay, the Cowboys might not win 6 games this year. So yeah, I mean, yes, Micah Parsons against the kind of a shoddy Giants defense. That's yes. Greg, I think you're right. There are defenses I would rather have. I'd rather have the Browns if they're out there on your waiver wire, but yeah, Cowboys are fine. Half PPR. This is from Jake Glasser. Don't call me Glazer. Maybe it's Glazer. Don't call me Glasser. Interns, look into it's Glasser. If it's Glasser or Glazer, thank you. All right, half point PPR. How much fab on Wilson? If you already have 3 strong, yeah, not much. And this is what I was trying to say at the beginning. Sorry, my chair keeps sinking. My chair, I'm gonna need to start a GoFundMe for a new office chair. 3 strong receivers. No, I don't think you need Garrett Wilson in that situation. Now, if you want to throw out a bid just to dip your toes in the Garrett Wilson water, you might as well. But don't go berserk here, okay? Yeah, and here's another Garrett Wilson thing question. Now, let's just talk about Garrett Wilson for just a moment. Maybe that'll bring a little bit of clarity to folks. I'm not sure why I said clarity like that, but I did. So here's what I wrote in this week's column. There were flickers of what was to come during the Jets' Week 1 drubbing at the hands of the Ravens. Garrett Wilson was a not-so-distant third in pass routes and was targeted on a healthy 24% of his routes, a little higher than Corey Davis and way higher than Elijah Moore. And Elijah Moore is an issue right now. Joe Flacco often locked in on Garrett Wilson as the Jets played from behind against Baltimore. When I talked to Patrick Crane, my colleague, on Sunday night, we both raised an eyebrow at Wilson's opening day usage. That usage and efficiency continued in Week 2. Against the Browns, Wilson caught 8 of 14 targets for 102 yards and 2 touchdowns, including the game winner. He led the Jets with a nearly 32% target share and once again posted a gaudy target per route run rate of 38%. I mean, when you're a receiver and you get up near 40% of targets on your pass routes, that is tremendous. Really, really something to look at. Elijah Moore, meanwhile, was targeted on 10% of his routes against Cleveland. I'm not thrilled about that. So, yeah, you have a bad Jets team that has decided we're going to throw it. And I have to give credit to them for that because they could easily just take the loser's approach and say, it doesn't, we're establishing the run. And if we can't win like that, then we're not going to win. The old Joe Judge approach. But no, they're saying we would like to win. We would like to try to win. So good for you. Our Jets, many are saying, more and more, really. And so you have a situation where the Jets are probably going to keep throwing. Their defense really can't stop anybody. They made Jacoby Brissett look like a Pro Bowler this past week. And I think that sets up Garrett Wilson nicely. Don't worry about his snap count, by the way, because, and my colleague Patrick Crane pointed this out, Garrett Wilson came out on running plays, and he was in there on passing downs. And as a fantasy manager, that's all you care about. All right. So if you even think you need some wide receiver help for the rest of the season, you need to be pretty aggressive on fab bids for Garrett Wilson this week. Here's a trade question from Jackson Gillette. That's a good name. You sound like a detective in a novel. Do I trade Gerald, Everett, and Bateman for Deontay Johnson? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. This is a good question. And the answer is yes. Deontay Johnson is dominating targets. We can all get together and pray if you are religious, or even if you're not. Just consider it just for this one time that Deontay Johnson gets some help from Kenny Pickett or Mason Rudolph or anybody but Mitch Trubisky. And yeah, I mean, Gerald Everett is probably replaceable. Bateman has gotten very, very fortunate, I'll say, through 2 weeks. Listen to this, folks. The folks will never believe this. All right. We have Devin Duvernay and Rashad Bateman are in the top 4 in receivers for fantasy points over expected. So, in other words, vastly outperforming their opportunity through 2 weeks. And that happens when you catch long touchdowns. It's also nice. I think it's part of Bateman's game. But he'll be a volatile option going forward. So I would much rather, basically this is Bateman for Johnson. That's what this comes down to. So I would want Deontay Johnson. Speaking of fantasy points over expected, if I can just take a moment here, for wide receivers through 2 weeks, you have obviously Cooper Kupp, Jalen Waddle, second, Cortland Sutton, third, which is tremendous. He's way under expected, but fantasy points over expected. But as far as expected points, he is fourth. Amon-Ra St. Brown, fifth. Tyreek, sixth. Then Jamar Chase. Brandon Cooks is in the top 10 in expected fantasy points among wideouts. So maybe don't lose the faith yet. I mean, Davis Mills has been just treacherous through 2 weeks. But maybe exercise a little patience. All right, I know this is a waiver show, but I want to talk about this for a second. Howie says, can we pour one out for our analytics king, Brandon Staley? Yeah, I mean, I think Brandon Staley learned his lesson in 2021, which is that the goal of coaching is to lose in a traditional way. You know, you don't you can't lose in an untraditional way, because if you do, that's when you get fired quickly, because no one has your back then. An organization has to be truly committed to being super aggressive on fourth downs, to foregoing punts, to foregoing field goals, for passing all the time. And I don't know if the Chargers are. And so he got the message. Look, if I want to stick around, Staley says, if I want to stick around, I need to start losing in a traditional way. And he is. So congratulations to Chargers fans. You have a coach who's committed to losing, but in a traditional way. So it's good. All right. Brian says Tony Pollard or Cordarrelle Patterson this week in the flex. Pollard's usage was hopeful, although as usual, he didn't get all the passing down work. You know, it would be way easier. I could say Pollard right now, easy, if Zeke was doing the early down thing and being boring, and then Pollard was doing the passing down thing and being exciting. But Zeke is still getting like a third of the passing down work, if not more. So I think it has to be Patterson. Although I know last week was frustrating, but I think Patterson. Okay, Tim Kelly, is Kadarius Toney worth holding? Well, listen, there was a report this morning. You can check it out on NBCSportsEdge.com, powered by Rotoworld, that the new Giants brass, Brian Dable and general manager Joe Schoen, are installing a meritocracy in Giants land, where they don't care if you were drafted in the first round. They don't care if you were a huge free agent signing. And this is bad news, of course, for both Kenny Golladay, who was benched this past week, and Kadarius Toney, who is nothing but a rotational player at the moment. I would try to hold on to Toney because, he's a metrics god. Sorry to get religious, but it's true. Targets per route run, yards per route run, like he pops in everything. So if the Giants stop being stubborn and play him over Richie James one day, he could be really useful for fantasy, I think. Although there's still the quarterback situation. So let's see. We have Daly says, can't believe I was able to draft London and Wilson in the last two rounds. I mean, is it 18 league or something? But great. I mean, way to go. Drake London is going to be fantastic in that terrible offense. We have a Pitts. Would you Pitts, Wilson, Jeff Wilson, and Kirk be too much for Kelsey? Well, it kind of depends on your team. No one's going to want Pitts right now. No one. And especially not for Kelsey. God. Let me just talk about Pitts for a second, because I know the folks are freaking out, and I understand. I tweeted today, and you can find me on Twitter at CDCarter13. I tweeted today that Pitts through 2 weeks has 10 pass blocking snaps to his name. That's a lot, considering all of last season, Kyle Pitts logged 15 pass blocking snaps in the Atlanta offense. Arthur Smith has now twice complimented Kyle Pitts as, wait for it, a blocker in the Falcons offense. So I think we have a problem. I mean, Pitts can be generational still, a unicorn, whatever you want to say, however you want to describe him, that's fine. And you're probably right. But it doesn't matter for us if he's being used the way he's being used. Now, I will say you're not going to find a better option on the waiver wire. So don't drop Pitts. And I would not play Logan Thomas over Kyle Pitts. Maybe the squeaky wheel. This is the upside here. Maybe the squeaky wheel thing with the press basically saying, hey, Arthur Smith, why aren't you using Kyle Pitts? And him saying, oh, it's not fantasy football. And then running off. Being mad online. That's what Arthur Smith is right now. And offline, really. Maybe he will have to use Pitts just under pressure. Maybe Arthur Blank will want to give a call to his head coach and say, hey, remember the guy we drafted in the first round last year? Maybe throw him the ball more than twice a game. So, I mean, you could try this trade, but geez, I can't imagine anybody taking it. Should I trade Alvin Kamara? No. I mean, you're going to get pennies on the dollar. What are you going to, I mean, you're going to get Nyheim Hines for Alvin Kamara. So no. Dave says, keep Landry or take the dip on it's Wilson over Landry. Gerald Everett worth scooping off the wire? Absolutely. I didn't include him in my waiver wire piece this week because he's too highly rostered, but he's a real part of this Chargers passing attack. Now, if Justin Herbert misses time with this rib cartilage, that the team is keen on saying cartilage. No, it's not his rib. It's his rib cartilage. Don't you know the difference? He has broken ribs. I mean, that's the thing. Okay. If he's out, then Everett becomes extremely iffy. Extremely iffy. Taysom Hill over Pitts? No. Let's not get crazy here. All right. Listen to your podcast, and you are too low on Garrett Wilson. Have you considered that he's him? Wait a sec. I'm not low. I'm not like wildly high, I guess, on Garrett Wilson. This is an interesting one. Tom Wentz, Carson's brother, says cut bait on Darnell Mooney. Man, I think the lesson I told Rotopat this the other day. Sometimes we just have to cross out names in an entire offense before we draft. Just say no. I'm not drafting any Bears. That would have been great for all of us, I think, in August. Okay, so in 10 teams, yeah, you're done with Mooney. You can definitely do better. In 12, I'm a little more hesitant, but you probably can't start him. Okay, look, I'll say that like Ashton Doolin, who is a receiver for the Colts, for those who don't know, if Alec Pierce is out again this week, he has a concussion, and or Michael Pittman, Doolin is a way better option than Darnell Mooney. The Bears threw 11 passes while getting their heads stomped all night on Sunday Night Football against the Packers. 11. That's like unforgivable. What a horrible organization, man. Just completely lost. We have. Is there any hope for Ezekiel Elliott? I mean, he's an RB3 option, I think. Maybe he'll get lucky and tumble into the end zone and do the I'm eating cereal. Scored a touchdown, gonna eat some cereal thing, which is just the most tired celebration in the history of football. So you probably do better, but RB3, yeah. This person, Johnny Darter. I had Lance in a 12-team PPR. Who to pick up rest of season off waivers? Jimmy, Lawrence, Mariota, Flacco, Mayfield, or Cooper Rush. Do you think Ritter or Willis will be playing soon? I think both Ritter and Malik Willis will play. Will get significant snaps later in the season. They're prepping Ritter. Like Ritter's happening, I would guess, before Thanksgiving, and then Willis maybe later on in the season. I mean, the Titans are done. Like their season is lost, so they're going to have to see what they have in Willis because they're going to have to move on. Like they're going to have to rebuild. So they're worth rostering in deep leagues and obviously in super flex. Willis and Ritter need to be rostered in all super flex formats right now. As for your question, I'll go with Trevor Lawrence, actually, which I would not have guessed I would have said, but Lawrence has his metrics look okay through 2 weeks. He has there's a stat. Let me explain it to you. It's expected points added plus completion rate over expected. It's a composite of those stats. It's a really good measure of how efficient a quarterback is. Now, after 2 weeks, you have Patrick Mahomes at the top of that list. You have Josh Allen second. You have Tua third. And you have Trevor Lawrence fourth, right above Lamar Jackson. So, yeah, and the Jags seem okay with a somewhat pass first attack. So, yeah, go with Trevor. Russell Westbrook, thank you for joining the chat, Russell Westbrook. I enjoy your fashion. I have Rashad Penny. What do I do? Wait until 2023 to play fantasy again. No, I'm kidding. I have Penny on a couple of teams. You can't start him. Look, Travis Homer has now squeezed Penny and what's his name, Ken Walker, into an early down timeshare in an offense. By the way, Pete Carroll came out today and he said, we have to let Geno cook. So I guess that's happening. I guess the Seahawks are finally ready after telling Russell Wilson he could not cook for a decade or more. It's time to let Geno Smith do the cooking. And that's even worse for Walker and Penny. I guess hold him if you can, but don't feel compelled. You absolutely cannot start him in 12-team leagues. Chad says Derrick Henry has one more very expensive year left on his deal, and the Titans are yeah, right. So Titans rebuilding. Titans are the worst rushing team in the league through 2 weeks. Makes you think. It makes you think. Do I drop Justin Fields for Jimmy G? I'd rather start Justin Fields. So no. Sorry, I just had to work that one through in my head. Let's see. What do we have? Rest of season Lance replacement. This is from Jerome Smith. A Lance replacement Goff or Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence. Jared Goff is bad. He's bad. He's the same old Goff. Don't let the whole Amon-Ra St. Brown thing fool you. Okay. Goff is terrible. Truly awful. That composite stat that I talked about just a moment ago. Let me tell you, Jared Goff is 25th in that stat. Well, right underneath a guy named Thomas Brady. And right above Mitchell Trubisky. So he's still quite bad. Trevor Lawrence there. This is a little morbid. Is George Pickens playable? I'll say no, he's not. He has that dog in him, but he's not playable. Deontay Johnson is the only fantasy viable receiver for the Steelers until Mitch Trubisky's horrible, nightmarish run as the starter runs its course. I fear it could take a long time, considering Mike Tomlin is a really stubborn man. This is a good question. Stephen Pham says, Tua versus Burrow, who has a higher ceiling, better outlook rest of season. I just talked about how, Tua's week 3 matchup against Buffalo is going to be rough. But overall, it's kind of a middling schedule for quarterbacks. And the Bengals cannot protect Joe Burrow. They can't. Nothing can develop downfield for Jamar Chase, for T. Higgins. I think that the Dolphins being so far over their expected pass rate is a good sign for Tua. And this is close. And it's probably recency bias, but I'm going to go Tua. That Bengals offense is in major trouble. All right. Larry Hernandez. Is Jalen Waddle a must start this week over AJ Dillon? Yeah. Like I said, I mean, look, you can't bench the receiver with the second most expected fantasy points through 2 weeks. And I know he had that crazy game against Baltimore, but we can expect. I mean, the Dolphins are great for fantasy because we know where the ball's going, right? Like there's no guessing like there is in Kansas City. Oh, maybe it'll be Juju, maybe it'll be MVS, whatever. Sky Moore, whoever that is, a Zoomer psyop, Sky Moore. Look, we know where it's going. It's either going to Tyreek or it's going to Jalen Waddle. It's not going anywhere else. That's it. Those are the two options. So if Tua is going to have a big day, one or both of those guys are going to have a big day. So yeah, Waddle over Dillon for sure. Adam says Christian Kirk, Cortland Sutton, or Patterson this week. I need 2. I'd go with the receivers with Sutton and Kirk. Kirk's usage is great. It's exactly what we want for any receiver, and that is he's getting intermediate, sort of short area targets where he can pick up some easy fantasy production, right? Doesn't have to work too hard for those. And he's getting downfield shots out of the slot, okay, in mismatches. And Trevor Lawrence seems perfectly fine with peppering Christian Kirk with targets. So when we can combine the easy stuff with high value downfield stuff, we get good seasons. And that's what Christian Kirk has going for him. Kirk has to be started in all formats going forward. 14 leagues, you're starting Christian Kirk. Kidding, sort of. Yeah, so Kirk and Sutton. Well, okay, that's a little long. We'll get down to the questions here. Who would you pick up, Sterling Shepard or Landry? I'd go with Landry. I don't want any part of the Giants' passing attack, if that's what we're going to call it. Thoughts on Jk Dobbins? My chair sunk again, so we're popping up. All right, look. Jk Dobbins could still be like weeks away, and when he finally plays, who cares? The Ravens are not running the ball, and they will not run the ball. I hate to be so harsh. I take no pleasure in being so harsh. But listen, through 2 weeks, the Ravens are top 10 in pass rate over expected. This is what happened last year. Lamar doesn't check down to anybody, including running backs. So I don't know. I don't know what appeal Jk Dobbins has. I just don't. Yeah, this is good. This is good. Thank you for this. Give me that dog. Who reportedly has that dog in them? Thoughts on Chase Edmonds? Let me read you a little story that I wrote about the Miami backfield and the week 2 usage. I wrote this on NBCSportsEdge.com. Let me reset. I'm going to reset. Hello, I'm Denny Carter from NBC Sports Edge, powered by Rotoworld. This is the weekly waiver wire Q&A with me. Thank you for joining. Send me your waiver wire questions, maybe some start sits, maybe some opining on the universe, things of that nature. And let me get back to the Dolphins. The Dolphins backfield. Lots of Dolphins talk. This is a Dolphins stream, first and foremost. I can't find. There's Mostert. Okay, all right. Here we go. Mostert played well behind Chase Edmonds in week 1 against the Patriots. But here's the thing. Edmonds was the worst running back in the NFL on opening day. He had the league's lowest rush yards over expected per attempt while facing 8 defenders in the box on a low 16% of his rushing attempts. Mostert last week against the Ravens started and led the Dolphins backfield 11-5 in carries. The most important development here is that Mostert splits pass catching work with Edmonds, the presumed pass catching specialist for the Dolphins. Maybe that won't stick. Maybe Mostert will take on more of an early down role and Edmonds will take the passing stuff. One issue here is that Edmonds actually was good in week 2. He gained 33 yards on 5 carries, nearly broke a long run in the fourth quarter. All his metrics really popped in week 2. So I can't really say for sure that Mostert is the guy right now. But he's worth picking up, especially if you're like desperate for running back help, like I am in a couple leagues. You go ahead and do that. Oh, and as for Edmonds, you hold him. You try not to start him for the time being. I have Curtis Samuel, this watcher says, viewer, not watcher, viewer. I have Curtis Samuel. I want to trade him for Josh Jacobs. What do you think? I think a lot of things. And I think that's a bad idea. Josh Jacobs is getting good run, but Curtis Samuel is like, the de facto number 1 receiver. He has an average depth of target of 3 through 2 weeks. That's fantasy gold. Okay. Now, if it's a standard league, maybe go with Jacobs. Half PPR or PPR, you're getting a guy who's just gobbling up short stuff for very easy fantasy production. So I'd rather have Samuel. All right. Next question. Larry says, would you drop ETN and have PPR? I think he's droppable in 10 teams. Sure. 12 teams. I'd want to hold on because basically he's a contingency back at this point. If James Robinson misses time, Etienne presumably gets a full workload in the Jacksonville offense. But he's nothing more than a contingency back because James Robinson is getting a ton of the work for a reason. He's been good. Look, I'm looking at some stats right now, and yeah, I mean, he is among the league leaders, I believe, in yards after contact. He's getting a lot of red zone work, a lot of green zone work, high value touches in the Jags offense. So keep ETN if you can in a 12-team league. That's what I would say. All right. Kenyan Drake or Ramondre Stevenson. Look, it might be finally, at long last, it might be Ramondre's season. I don't know, man. I'm so tired. I'm exhausted by this charade that the Patriots put on, where they said, Ramondre is our guy, and he's not our guy. He's not their guy, I should say. And the usage is just not there. But the Baltimore backfield is a black hole for fantasy production. Just avoid it. You go with Stevenson, hope for the best. And also, if Damian Harris is nicked up, maybe the Patriots have no choice but to actually use Ramondre. They've finally been put into a corner, and you never put Bill Belichick in a corner. What do we have? Would you drop Garrett Wilson and pick up Garrett Wilson and drop Gallup? Gallup should be close to return. That's tough. I'd rather have Wilson, I think. Dak Prescott apparently is supposed to be back in like 2 weeks, but that's very optimistic. That's Jerry Jones nonsense. So go with Garrett Wilson. Thoughts on CEH? I mean, you're getting a lot for what you drafted. I don't think when you drafted him you were expecting him to be, top 15 in expected fantasy points over 2 weeks. He's way over fantasy points over expected. I know that's a mouthful, but basically he's really outperforming his opportunity, and he's being efficient, which is something we have not seen from CEH. And also Kansas City seems intent on, operating through its running backs and through Travis Kelce. Jerick McKinnon took a lot of the green zone opportunity last week against the Chargers. That was unfortunate for CEH, but I mean, I wouldn't trade away CEH. I wouldn't try to outsmart yourself and say, oh well, like I know I can trade him now. He's doing well. He's not going to do well in the future, but the usage is, I think, stable enough for him to continue this, whatever this is. Oh, here's one I want to get to. Hector says, would you trade Jahan Dotson for Breece Hall? So if you're fine at receiver, the answer is yes. And here's why. Breece Hall is real close to breaking out, okay? He's 5th in Pro Football Focus's metric called yards after contact per attempt, and he's 6th in Next Gen Stats. Let me just look this up real quick. Rush yards over expected per attempt. What this means is he is doing a lot more than gaining what is blocked. And this is the kind of prospect he was coming out of college. A guy who can make yards on his own. I'm pretty sure that's why he went so high in the draft to the Jets. As a Michael Carter truther, I am concerned, borderline devastated, but Breece Hall is good. Breece Hall is good. He's gotten a lot of passing down work so far, even though Michael Carter really excels in that area. I'm not mad. Stop saying I'm mad. Don't put it in the paper that I'm mad, is what I'm asking you to do. I'm actually looking up some receiving stats to see about Michael Carter and Breece Hall splits, and I having trouble, so I'm going to abandon this little mission and go to the next question. Let's see. Freddie says, do I use priority waiver on Tua? if you're quarterback needy, sure. But like, please listen, everybody. I see too much of this, like, see, like, oh, this quarterback did well, so I need him as my backup in case my starter doesn't do well. Don't do that. Don't do that. You're clogging up your bench. This is for one quarterback leagues, by the way. You're clogging up your bench when you do that. Please, please, for the love of your fantasy team, don't do that. But if you need a quarterback, yes, you could do way worse than Tua. All right, let's see. We are going to go to one with a lot of question marks here. EH says, should I trade Kamara and James Robinson for what? For Javonte Williams and Breece Hall? Yeah. Yeah. Do that, man. With all the exclamation points. What do we have here? I have Edmonds last year. Do you know how bad he was? I have an idea. Seeing that it's my job. All right. Is Juju worth keeping? The breakout's not happening. So I think he's still starter worthy-ish, but I guess maybe in a 10 teamer you might be able to drop him. I don't know. That's a kind of a weird question. So he's actually, let's see, in expected points, he's in the let's see, Russell Gage range, the Allen Robinson range. His route running is good, but he's not really commanding targets in the Chiefs offense. So I think there should be a little concern there. Pollard or Robinson. So I'm assuming this is James Robinson. James Robinson is a vastly superior fantasy option over Tony Pollard, unless Ezekiel Elliott gets hurt, which will never happen. We have to come to grips with that. It will never happen. And thank goodness. We don't want to see that. James Robinson is the answer to all your questions. Drop Penny for Walker. I mean, sure. I don't know. Okay. No. Yes. Who cares? They're both useless. Would you consider trading Dalvin Cook? Well, you're going to get a bag of potato chips for Dalvin Cook, and not like the bag that's like stuffed, that you get from the vending machine. You're like, oh yeah, I finally got like a good bag full of chips. No, it's going to be like one of those things where you open it and you're like, come on, man, there's 5 chips in here and 2 of them are crumbled. So no, just stick with it. He's getting a lot of touches. He's probably not bad. But I know it's frustrating. Turns out that rostering any of the top running backs this year is frustrating. It's curious. Let's see. Lots of questions. All right. Should I trade Michael Thomas to get Renfro and Akers? No, don't do that. Don't do that. Should I trade Kyle Pitts away? So if you want to hear me talk about Kyle Pitts, if that is on your agenda for today, then rewind. Near the beginning of this stream, I talked about Kyle Pitts' usage and what to do with him for now. Zeke for Breece Hall. Yes. Okay. Yes. This is good. Thank you, Zoom Big. Look, Breece Hall is a classic buy low right now. Okay. If you have questions, 5 minutes ago, I talked about it. Yes, I would 100 times out of 100 trade Ezekiel Elliott for Breece Hall. Yes, do that immediately. Jamal Lewis says, did Denny just say I'd rather start Justin Fields than drop him? I don't think I said that. I think I said I would rather start Justin Fields over Jimmy G. I'm sorry if I did say that. That would be weird. You're right, Jamal Lewis. Is Pierce droppable? Yeah. Wait. Damian Pierce? No. Alec Pierce? Yes. First names would be good. All right. What do we have here? Is a kicker question. Look, folks, I love kicker questions, so thank you for this. Is Brandon McManus a league winner with how bad Russ and company are in the red zone? No. In fact, I don't even think that you should feel compelled to start him on an every week basis. What does he have so far? Well, I'm just noticing that he has 7 field goal attempts through 2 games, which is a lot. It probably leads the league. We're going to look at my interns. Look into whether Brandon McManus is leading the league in field goals. Thank you. It's shaky because, I mean, that Broncos offense is terrible. Really, the kicker process is not about guessing which teams are going to be bad in the red zone. It's trying to project which teams are going to move the ball and have positive and neutral game script. There will come a day where these Denver offensive struggles will manifest into terrible game script that prevents McManus from having, those second half field goal attempts. So I think in easy matchups, he should be fine. This week against the Niners, I would try to start someone else. Let's just put it that way. James Cook's backfield soon. No. James Cook is bad. Sorry. All right. Gabriel Sanchez says, I traded CEH Mike Evans for CPAT and Terry McLaurin. How did I do? I don't know, man. I mean, I want to say good. The problem is that McLaurin is okay. A minute ago, I said Christian Kirk is great for fantasy right now and should be going forward because he's getting some easy stuff in the intermediate part of the field where he can kind of pile up like a base level of fantasy production. And he's getting some downfield high value looks from Trevor Lawrence. That's what we want with receiver. That's not what we're getting with Terry McLaurin. Okay. We're getting lots of downfield stuff for McLaurin. Now, that will lead probably eventually to a big week or 2 or 5 or whatever, but it'll be up and down. It'll be volatile unless his usage changes. And I don't know if we can bank on that. So I think you got the wrong end of this deal, man. Well, sorry to the kids, but thank you to Rushman. Would you trade Najee and Waddle for Dalvin Cook? God, I know I'm not trading. I mean, I would need to get more for Waddle. Waddle, broke out last year. I know he had a slow week 1, but no, I wouldn't do that. Sorry, Gabe. But thank you for watching. Trying to suppress a burp. Yeah, Treylon Burks, is he worth holding? I think so. Look, we're gonna look up some Treylon Burks stuff real quick because I'm actually curious to see. Let's see, Treylon Burks. All right, we have he has 7 catches on 11 targets for 102 yards so far. He has very high grades from Pro Football Focus. His route rate ticked up a little bit in week 2 against Buffalo, and the Tennessee starters were pulled in the 4th quarter, maybe even the 3rd quarter, I think. So that probably would have been even better. But yeah, I mean, last night against the Bills, Treylon Burks was targeted on 6 of his 17 pass routes. That's strong. Keep the faith. Try with Treylon Burks. I will say that a Malik Willis takeover of this offense would be obviously bad for Treylon Burks because I think it would become the run heaviest, offense in the league at that point. What to do with Singletary's getting all the first team action and still it's not happening. It's very frustrating. I think you could probably do better in 12-team leagues than Singletary and Renfro right now. I know that doesn't really answer your question completely. We have Michael Thomas or Antonio Gibson for Breece Hall. I would definitely deal Gibson for Breece Hall right now. Try to get Breece Hall, folks. Try. Here's a good question. Where do I send my application to be your intern? My interns don't find me. I find my interns. So just sit tight, JD. Can I drop Akers yet? Yeah, probably. Yeah, I would say so. Sit James Conner for either. Well, if James Conner plays, I think you play him. James Conner got, that was bad. That was bad luck, man. That ankle thing. James Conner's going to see a ton of high value touches, and by that I mean receptions and green zone looks inside the 10. So Conner will always be a better option than the Patriots guys. All right. Let's get. I'm gonna do some rapid fire because we have 9 minutes. This has flown by, folks. Thank you for joining. I'm gonna reset real quick. This is the NBC Sports Edge, powered by Rotoworld waiver wire question and answer session. Thank you for joining me, Denny Carter. You can find me on Twitter at CDCarter13. And my interns, all just off screen, have joined me, and they're doing research as we speak. Keep it up. Come on. No lunch breaks. No bathroom breaks. Can't find good help. Quiet. Everybody's quiet quitting these days. Going to the bathroom. All right. Well, let's see. I have Tony Pollard on my bench. Is he a must start? RB2 over Singletary. Yeah, I would start him over Singletary. Should we be willing to sell high on Patterson? I mean, if you can, I guess. Let's see. Kansas City or Chargers defense this week. So I know this might sound weird, but like if Justin Herbert is out this week, then I would be way less bullish on the Chargers defense, because a defense is largely defensive performance in fantasy largely depends on game script and how, what kind of position the team's offense puts them in. And we've seen this many times. So the Chargers defense might be good, but they might be in a bad spot because Justin Herbert is not there. So KC defense, if Herbert is out, if Herbert plays, you go with Chargers. All right. AJ Dillon or Breece. I'd rather have Breece Hall. Would you trade DJ Moore and James Robinson from Mixon? No. Stick with those two. What wide receiver should I target in a Derrick Henry trade? You're trading away Derrick Henry. You're sick of it. You can't deal. You're sick of it. Okay, gotcha. What kind of wide receivers could you get? That's a tough question off the top of my head. Let's see. You could get DK Metcalf. You could get, I don't know, Josh Palmer. It's probably very bleak. James Robinson over Darrell Henderson. Do I trust Darnell? I talked about Darnell Mooney a little earlier. I'm out. I'm out on all Bears. So there you go. All right. Let's see. We have 7 minutes left. Andrew Little says, would you take Mark Andrews for Christian Kirk and Amon-Ra Freiermuth on my bench? Would you trade? Wow. This is a blockbuster trade, man. Oof. I mean, I don't want to steer you wrong here, but I'm having trouble saying no to Christian Kirk and Amon-Ra. And PPR, you're talking about two easily top 15, top 12 probably receivers in exchange for Andrews, and you have Freiermuth. Yes. Man, that's tough. I mean, but you're in a good spot. Seems like you probably have a good team. Let's see, Thielen, Adam Thielen for Jacobs. I mean, this is kind of a who cares situation. Like, neither guy is going to win you anything, and the only time Thielen so far through 2 games has seen any sort of action is in garbage time last night against the Eagles. So I guess I'd rather have him. Maybe I mean, if you need running backs, if you just need pure running back touches, then you're gonna want Jacobs. Oh, here's a kicker question from JD. Thank you, JD. Is Chase McLaughlin? He kicks for the Indianapolis Colts after they unceremoniously booted my guy Rodrigo Blankenship for no reason. Is McLaughlin a top 10 kicker rest of season? No. I mean, he will be probably valuable. So at full strength, when the Colts are at full strength, he probably will be valuable against lesser competition where the Colts can generate some neutral and positive script. But like this week against the Chiefs, you're not playing McLaughlin. You're just not. All right. Some more questions here. Anthony says, drop Nyheim Hines 16. No. No. Nyheim Hines still has amazing contingency value. Maybe the most contingency value of anybody in the league right now. And it's 16 teams. Like, what are you going to do? How are you going to replace him on a waiver wire that probably has only guys like on the practice squads of NFL teams? No, you just keep Hines. I'm surprised you're not starting him at 16 teams. We'll do a couple more here. Tim says, thoughts on Tyler Algier, Rashad White, and Jordan Mason of the Niners are the ads over him because of the nature of the Falcons offense? I would say yes, especially if you can stash White. Rashad White needs to be rostered in like most, like the vast majority of 12-team leagues. This Bucs offense, it's run first. I mean, it could shift a little bit as the season wears on, but it's a huge change from what we're used to, and it changes the fantasy outlook for everybody in that offense. Makes Tom Brady something close to a streamer, and it makes Fournette incredibly valuable, and Rashad White is next in line, and obviously would see a lot of work, probably a 3-down role if Lombardi Lenny misses time. Jordan Mason should also be rostered in a lot of leagues because he's one Jeff Wilson injury away from becoming the primary ball carrier in the Niners backfield, which would be incredibly valuable now that Trey Lance is not the starter. Okay, so Trey Lance won't be taking away rushing opportunities. He won't be taking away goal line opportunities for the Niners running backs. It's great for them. Jordan Mason's up next. Get him. Stash him if you can. Please. All right, we're going to do last one here. Drop Lazard, Allen Robinson, Thielen for Dotson, Garrett Wilson, or Dortch. Yeah. I mean, I'd rather have... Dortch has short-term value because Rondale Moore will probably be back in a week or 2 or 3, and Dortch will be then on the bench for the rest of the season. So don't worry about Dortch. I'd rather have Dotson and Wilson over Lazard, over all these guys. Lazard, dust. Allen Robinson, dust. Thielen, the dustiest player in the NFL. Dotson and Wilson for sure over all those guys. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining me, Denny Carter, on this waiver wire Q&A. I will see you in week 4. Amazing. We're almost there. You can find my waiver wire piece on NBCSportsEdge.com. You can find me constantly tweeting, tragically, online at CDCarter13 on Twitter.